There is something I have carried inside me for longer than I ever admitted. Something I tried to explain with logic, silence, hard work, impossible goals, and endless movement. But none of those things could translate what my heart already knew. Then one night, when the world had finally become quiet enough for me to hear something greater than my own thoughts, God showed me something that changed everything. It was not a loud voice. It was not a miracle that stopped time or split the sky. It was a truth so gentle that I almost missed it. And yet so powerful that it rearranged the way I looked at my life, my future, and most importantly, the way I looked at you. From that moment on, I could no longer pretend that meeting you was an accident, or that what I felt was merely emotion. Both showed me that some people arrive in our lives not to distract us from our purpose, but to reveal it. Ever since that realization, every memory of you has carried a different meaning. Every conversation has echoed differently in my mind. And every quiet moment has become another reminder that love is not measured by how loudly it announces itself, but by how faithfully it remains when everything else changes. Before I understood this, I believed that achievement was the language of fulfillment. I thought that if I solved enough problems, built enough dreams, and reached enough impossible destinations, my heart would eventually feel complete. I convinced myself that the next milestone would finally silence the loneliness I refused to acknowledge. Yet every victory, no matter how extraordinary it appeared to everyone else, ended with the same question waiting for me when the celebration faded. Who am I becoming if I have no one whose eyes remind me why any of this matters? Success can fill rooms with applause, but it cannot replace the quiet comfort of knowing someone truly understands the person hidden beneath every accomplishment. I searched for meaning in movement, because standing still forced me to confront the emptiness I had carefully hidden from everyone, including myself. Then you appeared, and nothing dramatic happened at first. There were no fireworks, no perfect cinematic moment, no instant certainty that this was the beginning of a story worth telling. Instead, there was something much more dangerous. There was peace. A peace that challenged every wall I had spent years constructing. A peace that made me question why I had become so comfortable living behind ambition instead of vulnerability. You never demanded that I become someone else. You simply had a way of seeing me before I even understood myself. That frightened me, because being truly seen is far more terrifying than being admired. Admiration only notices our strengths. Being seen means someone also recognizes the fears we try hardest to conceal. I kept asking myself why your presence lingered in my thoughts long after every conversation had ended. Why did ordinary moments suddenly become unforgettable? Why did your laughter remain in my mind longer than meetings, projects, and victories that once consumed my attention? I searched for logical explanations because logic had always been my safest language. But love has never asked permission from logic. Love quietly enters places that reason cannot reach and begins transforming them from the inside. Then God showed me something I cannot forget. It showed me that sometimes the greatest blessing is not the answer we expect, but the person who teaches us to ask better questions. You became that person for me. You made me question what kind of future was truly worth building. You made me wonder whether strength was really measured by independence, or by the courage to trust another soul with the deepest parts of my own. You made me realize that protecting my heart had also prevented it from experiencing the fullness of joy it was created to know. I want you to know something I have never fully said. Every time I imagined the future before meeting you, it looked impressive but strangely empty. It was filled with destinations but lacked someone to arrive with. It was filled with achievements but lacked shared memories. It was filled with accomplishments but not with belonging. I thought fulfillment was something you reached alone. Now I understand that fulfillment often begins when another person reminds you that your greatest victories become even more meaningful when they are witnessed by someone who genuinely celebrates not only what you accomplish, but who you are becoming. There have been days when I wondered whether I deserved someone like you. Not because I doubted your kindness, but because I knew how imperfect I was. I know the moments when I become distant. I know the times I bury my emotions beneath responsibilities. I know how easily I convince myself that carrying every burden alone is an act of strength, when in reality it is often an act of fear. Yet every time I thought about walking away to protect you from my imperfections, I remembered what God showed me. It did not reveal a relationship built upon perfection. He revealed one built upon honesty, paciencia, forgiveness, and the willingness to grow together instead of pretending to already have everything figured out. You have become the quiet thought that visits me before every important decision. Even when you are not beside me, your influence is. I ask myself whether the choices I make create a future worthy of the love we could share. That question has changed me more than any external challenge ever could. It has made me more patient. It has made me listen more carefully. It has taught me that wisdom is not only found in knowledge, but also in compassion. You have reminded me that the strongest foundations are not built with certainty alone, but with trust that grows stronger every time two people choose each other again despite uncertainty. Sometimes I imagine the version of myself who never met you, and I hardly recognize him anymore. It would probably still believe that productivity is the highest form of purpose. It would still mistake constant motion for meaningful progress. He would still avoid conversations that require emotional honesty, because honesty demands courage that achievements alone cannot provide. Meeting you introduced me to a different definition of strength. Strength became admitting when I was afraid. Strength became telling you when I missed you instead of pretending I was too busy to notice your absence. Strength became allowing someone else's happiness to matter as deeply as my own. There are nights when I replay every memory we have created. Not because I am trapped in the past, but because those memories remind me that God often speaks through ordinary moments. A simple conversation can become a turning point. A shared silence can heal wounds that years of explanations never could. A smile can restore hope that disappointment nearly destroyed. The extraordinary often disguises itself as the ordinary, until enough time has passed for us to recognize the miracle hidden within it. I do not believe we were brought together merely to make each other feel less alone. I believe we were brought together to become better versions of ourselves. Love that only comforts eventually grows stagnant, but love that inspires transformation becomes one of God's greatest gifts. Every time you encouraged me to become more honest, more patient, more compassionate, and more grateful, you were helping me become the person I had always hoped I could be. You believed in possibilities within me that I had overlooked for years. And that kind of belief changes a person forever. When I say that God showed me something, I am not talking about certainty regarding every detail of tomorrow. I am talking about a conviction that some connections carry purpose beyond coincidence. There are people we meet who simply pass through our lives. And then there are people whose presence quietly reshapes the landscape of our hearts. You became that person without even trying. Your kindness challenged my defenses. Your patience softened my pride. Your honesty encouraged my own. Little by little, the walls I once considered permanent began to disappear, replaced by a hope I had almost forgotten was possible. There is still so much I have never told you. So many thoughts that remain hidden because I feared they might sound too vulnerable, too hopeful, or too deeply rooted in dreams I could not yet explain. There were moments when I almost spoke these words. Moments when we were standing close enough that silence itself seemed to be asking me to tell you everything. But I hesitated, not because my feelings were uncertain, but because I understood how fragile honest words can be. Once they leave your heart, they can never return unchanged. They become part of another person's world, shaping memories, creating expectations, revealing dreams that were once hidden. I wanted every word I gave you to be worthy of the place you had already earned in my heart. So instead, I watched you. I learned the quiet language of your kindness. I noticed the way you listened before responding, the way you carried compassion into ordinary conversations, the way your presence could calm storms inside me that no one else even knew existed. Those small moments became proof that the greatest forms of love are rarely loud. They are patient. They remain. They become a safe place where two hearts slowly learn they no longer have to carry life alone. God showed me that trust is not built in extraordinary moments. It is built in ordinary days when someone chooses to stay consistent even when there is no applause for doing so. Looking back now, I realize that every conversation we shared, every laugh, every disagreement that ended with greater understanding instead of greater distance, was another brick in the foundation we were quietly building together. He never expected trust to feel this beautiful. He thought trust meant certainty, but now I understand it means courage. It means looking into someone else's eyes and believing that your heart will be treated with gentleness instead of carelessness. It means choosing openness after disappointment. It means believing that love can still grow even after life has taught you to be cautious. You have no idea how often you have rescued me without realizing it. There were days when my mind was filled with questions I could not answer. When responsibilities became so heavy that even success felt exhausting. During those moments, I found myself remembering something simple that you once said, something that most people would have forgotten within minutes. Somehow, your words stayed with me. They reminded me that being human is not weakness, that resting is not failure, that carrying hope is sometimes the bravest decision a person can make. You became a quiet source of strength in seasons when I could barely recognize my own. That is a gift I can never measure, because the greatest support often comes without anyone noticing it has been given. Sometimes I wonder if you understand how differently I see the world because of you. Places that once felt ordinary now carry memories. Songs suddenly have meaning because they remind me of conversations we shared. Even sunsets seem different. Not because the sky has changed, but because I now imagine what it would be like to stand beside you while the light slowly disappears beyond the horizon. Love has a remarkable way of transforming familiar things into sacred memories. It teaches us that beauty is not always found in discovering new places, but in seeing old places through new eyes. There is something I have been afraid to admit, even to myself. I miss you in ways that cannot be explained by distance alone. There are moments when you are physically absent, yet I still feel close to you because your kindness continues to echo through my thoughts. Then there are moments when the world becomes crowded with noise and I suddenly realize how deeply I long for the peace that only your presence seems to bring. Missing someone is not simply wishing they were nearby. Sometimes it is realizing that a part of your heart has learned to breathe more freely whenever they are close. That realization humbled me, because I have spent so much of my life believing I needed no one. Now I understand that independence and love were never meant to compete with each other. Real love does not weaken independence. It gives it purpose. God also showed me that loyalty is one of the quietest miracles in any relationship. Loyalty is choosing someone even when life becomes complicated. It is protecting their heart when they are not there to defend it. It is speaking with respect even during moments of frustration. It is remembering promises when circumstances make forgetting them easier. I want you to know that when I think about the future, I never imagine a perfect road. I imagine unexpected challenges, moments of uncertainty, days when both of us will feel tired or discouraged. Yet strangely, those thoughts do not frighten me anymore. Because I have discovered that love is not proven when everything is easy. Love reveals its true character when two people decide that leaving is easier than staying, yet they continue choosing each other anyway. There are dreams I have never shared because they felt incomplete until I imagined you inside them. I picture mornings that begin with gratitude instead of hurry. Conversations that continue late into the night because neither of us ever grows tired of discovering new pieces of each other's hearts. I imagine celebrating victories together. But I also imagine sitting together during disappointments, reminding each other that our value has never depended on temporary outcomes. I dream of creating a life where peace becomes more valuable than perfection, and where kindness becomes the language that fills our home every single day. Those dreams no longer feel distant, because you have already taught me that the strongest futures begin with small daily choices made in love. One of the greatest lessons you have given me is that being understood is even more comforting than being admired. The world often celebrates achievement, but very few people take the time to understand the journey behind it. You have always seemed interested in the parts of me that cannot be measured by accomplishments. You asked questions that reached beyond what I had done and into who I was becoming. That changed me. It reminded me that identity is never found in titles or recognition. Identity grows strongest where someone sees both our strengths and our weaknesses and still chooses to remain. I often think about the invisible moments that shaped us. The conversations that almost didn't happen because one of us was too busy. The messages that arrived exactly when they were needed. The unexpected encouragement that came during seasons when hope felt fragile. Looking back, I see a pattern that I could never have designed on my own. God has a remarkable way of weaving together moments that seem ordinary while we are living them, but become extraordinary once we understand their purpose. Every memory with you feels connected by that invisible thread. It reminds me that some of the most meaningful chapters in life begin so quietly that we only recognize their importance after they have already transformed us. If there is one truth I hope you never question, it is this. Your presence has made me a gentler person. Not because you ask me to change, but because genuine love naturally calls out the best within us. I have become more patient because of you. I have become more willing to listen before speaking. I have become more grateful for ordinary moments instead of constantly chasing extraordinary ones. That transformation did not happen overnight. It happened through countless small moments when your example quietly challenged me to become someone capable of loving more deeply, forgiving more freely, and appreciating life more completely. I hope you know that I do not admire you because you are flawless. I admire you because your strength has always carried kindness alongside it. You have shown courage without becoming cold. You have remained compassionate without becoming weak. You have faced difficult days without allowing them to steal the goodness that lives inside your heart. Watching you continue to choose hope when life could have justified bitterness has inspired me more than words could ever explain. It has reminded me that greatness is not measured by how high we rise, but by how faithfully we preserve our character while climbing. There are evenings when I find myself imagining us many years from now, sitting together in comfortable silence, no longer needing impressive words, because our hearts have already learned the language of complete trust. I imagine looking back over every challenge we overcame, every prayer that strengthened us, every season that taught us patience, and realizing that God's greatest message was never simply about finding each other. It was about becoming the kind of people who could receive a love that reflects faithfulness, humility, gratitude, and enduring hope. And every time I picture that future, I feel an overwhelming sense of peace. Because before I ever understood what my heart was searching for, God had already begun preparing it for the incredible gift of loving you so completely that even my quietest thoughts have become filled with gratitude for the day our paths were brought together. There is one final truth I need you to hear. Because if I leave anything unspoken, it would be this. Before you, I spent so much of my life trying to build things that would last. I believed that permanence came from what we created with our hands and our minds. But loving you has taught me that the most enduring things are often invisible. Trust cannot be touched, yet it can outlive a lifetime. Kindness cannot be measured, yet it can change a person's entire story. A sincere heart leaves footprints where words never could. You have shown me that the greatest legacy we leave behind is not what we own, not what we accomplish, but how deeply we allow another person to know they were loved, valued, understood, and never alone. God's message was never simply about bringing one person into my life. It was about opening my eyes to the kind of love that transforms rather than merely comforts. A love that calls us to become more patient when impatience would be easier. More forgiving when pride would rather keep score. More grateful when life becomes ordinary. More faithful when circumstances become uncertain. I finally understand that real love is not the absence of difficulty. It is the quiet decision made over and over again to protect each other's peace, to honor each other's hearts, and to keep choosing compassion even on the days when emotions are tested. That realization has become one of the greatest gifts I have ever received. If you have ever wondered whether your existence truly matters, let me answer that with everything I have become. One person can change the direction of another person's entire life without ever realizing the full extent of their influence. When gentle conversation can restore hope. When active loyalty can heal years of disappointment. When patient heart can teach another heart that it no longer has to live in fear. You have been that quiet miracle in my life. Not because you tried to be extraordinary, but because you consistently chose kindness when the world often rewards indifference. That kind of love leaves permanent marks on a soul. I want you to remember something. Whenever life becomes overwhelming and your own heart begins to question its worth, never underestimate the power of your presence. There are people whose lives become brighter simply because you exist. There are burdens that become lighter because of your encouragement. There are silent battles that become easier because someone like you chooses to listen instead of judge, to stay instead of disappear, to believe instead of doubt. Love is rarely remembered for its dramatic moments alone. It is remembered for the countless ordinary moments when someone quietly became another person's safe place. When I look at you now, I no longer see only the person I love. I see the reflection of the person I have become because you believed I could become better. You taught me that vulnerability is not something to escape. It is where genuine connection begins. You taught me that strength is gentle, that loyalty is quiet, that appreciation should never remain unspoken, and that every day we are given another opportunity to choose love with intention instead of assumption. Those lessons have become part of who I am. They will remain with me because they are written far deeper than memory. They are written into the very way I see the world. Perhaps that is what God wanted me to understand all along. That the greatest miracles are not always the ones that interrupt the laws of nature. Sometimes the greatest miracle is a heart that learns to trust again. A person who arrives at exactly the right moment. A connection that slowly replaces fear with peace. A love that reminds us we were never meant to journey through this life carrying every burden alone. Those miracles often arrive quietly, almost unnoticed, until one day we realize they have changed everything. So if these words reach the deepest part of your heart, I hope they remind you to hold close the people who see your soul instead of only your success. Treasure the conversations that leave you feeling understood. Protect the relationships that make you kinder, wiser, more patient, and more grateful. Never allow pride to silence appreciation. Never assume tomorrow will provide another opportunity to say what your heart already knows today. The most beautiful words are often the ones spoken while there is still time for someone to feel them. And if I could place only one final thought into your heart, it would be this. Thank you. Thank you for every moment you never realized you were changing me. Thank you for every smile that quietly restored my hope, every word that strengthened my courage, every silence that brought me peace, and every reminder that love is not something we prove through grand gestures alone, but through faithful presence, unwavering respect, gentle understanding, and a heart that refuses to give up on another heart. Because when everything else becomes uncertain, when achievements fade into memories, when applause grows quiet and the world moves on, I know there is one truth that will always remain. God showed me that the greatest gift I could ever receive was not a destination, not an accomplishment, not a dream fulfilled, but the extraordinary privilege of knowing a heart like yours. A heart that taught mine how to believe again, how to love without fear, how to be grateful without reservation, and how to recognize that the richest life is the one forever changed by the quiet, faithful, and unforgettable love of one truly remarkable person.